Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about osmosis. Before we delve into that, we have a couple of vocabulary words to name, and these are going to be the words that are on your quiz tomorrow. So swell simply means to get bigger. Shrink, you may already know these. Shrink means to get smaller. Wilt also means to get smaller. Prevented means stopped, and shrivel also means to get smaller. Rupture means to burst or explode. You can see here I have 3 different ways to say get smaller. I don't want you to get tripped up by these words when you see them in questions. So I said that today is all about osmosis. So osmosis, we should know what it is when water moves from a high to low concentration. This concentration is this amount of water. Water can also move toward a high concentration of solute. So these are 2 ways to think of how water moves. Let me zoom out. Water moves from a high to low concentration of water, and water also moves toward a high concentration of solute. Remember, solute is like the Kool-Aid we just dissolved, or like salt. Anything that's dissolved in water. So, why is this important? Well, 70% of your body is made up of water, and certain conditions in our body can affect how water moves in between our cells. So today we're studying how different environments can affect our bodies, essentially affect the cells within our bodies. So one more important thing we need to know is in which direction does water move across membranes. This is why we talked so much about plasma membranes yesterday, because water not only moves from a high to low concentration, it's moving across membranes. So we need to discuss what's a gradient. A gradient, think of like a slide. So a gradient is like a slope. So think of the slide like you start high and go low. If you are going down the gradient, you're like going down the slide. And if you're going up a gradient, that means that you're like climbing up the slide. So we just discovered that osmosis, water moves from a high to low concentration. So we are going down the gradient. All right, so the table below talks about osmotic conditions. So these are the different conditions that your cells can be in. We want to see how each of these conditions affects your cells. So an isotonic condition doesn't really affect your cells. So cells stay the same. This means that water is moving in and out of your cell evenly. Same amount of water going in as out. So the annotation that you're going to use for this, anytime that you see these words, you're going to draw a picture. It'll just make it a lot easier to visualize. So, isotonic has the same amount of solute inside as outside. When you place it in an isotonic solution, that is not going to change. That is not going to change. So, your cell is going to remain the same. A hypertonic solution, the cells will shrink or get smaller. So cells will get smaller. This is because they've been put in an environment where water leaves the cell. The way we're going to draw that, we draw a normal sized cell. When it's placed in a hypertonic environment, it gets smaller because water leaves the cell. In a hypotonic environment, cells will get larger or get bigger. This is because water enters the cell. So in this case, cells may rupture or explode because it's so filled with water. So this is how a cell can die, is if you have too much water in them. So this is how people drown, right? They have too much water in their cells can't handle it anymore, so they explode and they no longer work. So how we're going to annotate that is we start with a normal cell. It's put in a hypotonic environment, so it gets bigger. We're going to practice this high to low in these cells below here. So we are drawing an arrow to show the direction of water movement into or out of each cell. So we need to remember, based on our definition of osmosis, water moves from a high to low concentration of water. So I see here inside my cell there's 98% water, outside is 95% water. If we go high to low, that means that water is moving outside. It goes from inside to outside. If water is leaving the cell, that means that it is getting smaller, so it is in a hypertonic environment. My next cell, I have 98% water inside, 98% water outside. That means that the water is moving in at the same rate it's moving out. Water's moving in both directions. It's not changing. This would be isotonic. The last one is that I have 100% water outside of my cell, 90% water inside. That means that water is going to be traveling inside my cell. If water is entering the cell, that would be hypotonic. So this may result in it rupturing.